Hey guys, it's Kevin, my review for 9 Days. So what 9 Days is essentially about is basically we center on this character Will, and he is an arbiter of sorts where he lives in this place that is, where everyone goes before they are sent down to Earth, so before they are essentially born. He is the arbiter. He's going to judge souls before they inhabit bodies in the living. If they qualify, then they do become actual people, but if they don't, they basically do become lost in that way. And so he is now in the process of having to decide between 5 unborn souls, and he has to kind of determine which one is going to be given life on Earth. But when he starts interviewing one of the souls in this character, Emma, she really starts to open him up to more possibilities within his life and kind of gets him to reflect on certain choices that he's made. So 9 Days overall, I was very excited for this film. I remember last year, at Sundance and things like that, people were really raving about this one. They were talking about how this is going to be a film that everyone's going to be talking about, when it comes out. It was going to be the film of the year, and it never came out last year. I waited the entire year, and it just never came out. They kept changing the date, and I didn't know if this movie was ever going to come out, and thankfully, it finally did acquire a release date of sorts in July, and I was so excited to see it. It looked like something really different, and something that I think is really unlike anything we've seen before. And I have to say, after seeing it, 9 Days absolutely lives up to the hype. This is truly a life-changing film that is very likely anything like you've seen before. This is a very complex film that honestly at points can kind of be beyond description with really how to describe it, especially without diving into spoilers, but it is absolutely among the best of the year. But we are just getting to right now, starting off with the cast. And I mean, that is easily one of the best things about this entire movie. I think if the cast was not as much as their A game, especially with a film like this, because this is a film that I think is very much a actor's film, and you'll know what I mean by that when we get more into like the screenplay and things like that. But the actors are essential. There aren't a lot of characters in this movie, and so you really do have to be drawn to these characters in order to do that, and gratefully all of these actors are really up to the task. Let's first talk about Winston Duke here, who, holy shit, I mean, going into this, he was really the thing I feel like most people were really kind of raving about and talking about, just like how amazing his performance is, but actually getting to see what he does here. I mean, this is truly a powerhouse performance, but not in the way you would really expect it to be. This is a very emotional performance, but it's done in a very subdued manner. Will is not someone that likes to emote. Will is not someone that gets angry or anything like that. He is very subdued to the point where it's almost monotone and robotic of sorts, but underneath all of that, you do feel a genuine sense of pain and sorrow and regret that this character has gone through within his life. And I think Duke just does such an amazing job with that. The way he is able to bring such, clear pathos to a character that, like I said, is almost devoid of any, or at least goes about his life in that way. I thought he just did such an amazing job here. He has one monologue especially that you are just so intimidated by, like watching him perform it. It's so intimidating, but you also it also gets you to really feel for him, because what's driving him to present what he's doing in the manner that he is. And again, I can't get into it too much, but he just absolutely crushed it in this role. Duke has always been someone that I've really loved as an actor, but I feel like here he really challenged himself to do something decidedly different from what we've seen from him before, kind of stripping himself of all the charisma that we normally do see, playing a much more subdued role, and really just showing how dynamic of an actor he really can be. And I really love what he ended up doing. He completely transformed this role, and it is among one of the best performances I have seen all year. The film, I think, honestly, is worth watching alone just for his performance here. But Zazie Beetz, I also really do want to highlight in this film. I feel like she's not getting talked about as much as some other aspects of this film, and I think that's a shame, because I think she gives a really strong performance here as the character of Emma. What I really like about her is that she's the complete opposite of Will. She's much more of this happy-go-lucky, free spirit type of character, and she does a really good job with that. I really like the lightness that she brings to this movie. I think she did a fantastic job in this film. I really love what she ended up bringing to the table here, and I think just in general, she did an amazing job in this film. I think she was definitely one of the big standouts for sure, and the dynamic between her and Winston Duke is truly, when this film is at its best, just the back and forth between them. She does a really great job with that. As far as the rest of the cast goes, everyone does a really strong job here. Benedict Wong is really strong as the character of Kaio. He is sort of a higher up of sorts. He's kind of like Will's superior. Like, he has the final say in what happens and things like that. But he's also kind of trying to be like a confidant to Will, and I really loved his performance in this film. Bill Skarsgård is really great. Tony Hale, even some of the smaller roles, like this actress Arianna Ortiz. I've never seen her before, but she plays this character Maria, and just what we've, just from what I've seen from her here, I really hope we get to see her in more movies, because I think she has a real future for sure. I really love getting to see each of these characters. Every single one of them has a very challenging role, because they're not necessarily playing a person, they're playing a spirit, but you really do feel like these are genuine people, and I think they all just did a really strong job with that. It's easily one of the best acting ensembles I've seen all year. But now we got to get to the directing and the writing here, because that's what really, I think, makes this film truly unlike anything I've seen before. The directing here from Edson Oda is a very specific approach. It's not one that you would really expect from a film like this, because yes, we have seen films that deal with the afterlife, but we have not seen many films that deal with the before life, and that's a lot of what this film does center around. And while this film can be a very emotionally taxing one that I do think is going to get to you in a lot of ways, what I think Oda does such a great job with is that there actually is a very uplifting quality to this film, which I really was not expecting, but I think it feels very genuine. It works very well for a movie like this. I mean, for a while, yeah, this film can be really tough to watch. There are a lot of emotional moments that I do think are going to very much get to you, but Oda wants to focus on every single emotion possible, every stage of life that you possibly can, and you really do feel like you're going through that. It's one of those films I think is going to get you to do some self-reflecting, and I think a lot of that is due to the way that Oda decides to go about this film. It also should be noted, a lot of this film very much does feel like a stage play of sorts. There are many scenes that are just characters exchanging dialogue back and forth in one room. We don't leave this room for a while, and for some people that might get jarring. For some people that could get really boring, but I think what makes it work so well in 9 Days is that it makes it feel that much more intimate. And I think Oda directing the film like that actually made for a much more impactful experience. So when we eventually do leave that room, we're that much more invested in what's going on. We feel that much more affected by the events that took place. And I think he just did a really good job with directing here. It is, from what I understand, directorial debut, and I hope we're able to see more from him, because I definitely do think he has it in him. I think he is a very strong director here, and I really do want to see him tackle something else after this film, because he really does have something that does at times evoke certain directors. Like, yeah, there are parts of this film that do remind me of Charlie Kaufman. There are parts of this film that do remind me of Spike Jonze, who coincidentally also executive produces this film, but Oda does have his own specific style that's kind of hard to clearly define, but I think when you watch this film, you'll understand more of what I'm talking about, and I think he does such a great job with that. But his screenplay is really what we need to get into, because this is such a fascinating work. The way this film is constructed, the plot itself seems very simple, but it's really anything but that, because a lot of it actually is a character study on Will himself, who we find out very, very early on in the movie has actually lived a life before. He hasn't always been this arbiter. There are choices that he's made that's led him to this point in life, and that part of the film, I thought, it created a whole new meaning to a lot of what we saw early on, because you do get the sense this is a guy that is very disgruntled. He's very frustrated with the way things go on, but he also is sort of content with that. He recognizes the fact that he is sort of in a, rotating cycle of sorts. He doesn't really do much else. He's very reclusive. He picks souls to go in. He picks it in a very sort of pragmatic manner. He doesn't really he puts a lot of thought into it, but he likes to take emotional investment out of the equation entirely. But that kind of changes things when, there's a certain thing that happens very on the film, and it really does kind of shake up his worldview of sorts. And that's what makes, I think, Will such a fascinating character, especially when you contrast that with Emma, someone that is basically as happy-go-lucky as you can really get. I mean, she's always looking at the positives in life. She's always trying to embrace things. She's trying to get him to open up more and heal from what he's doing, but he doesn't really want to do that. And I found their relationship to be a very interesting one, because you really do understand where they're both coming from. You understand Emma's free spirit attitude, why she feels the way that she does, but you also understand why Will feels so broken and is so almost authoritative in the way that he goes about things. It very much feels like he's like the master and everyone else just sort of like, goes along with his specific way of life, because he does have a very specific way of going about life. There's a way that he wants to teach these spirits. That's what he really wants to do. He wants to teach these souls a certain way to go about life. And when you're watching the film, you really can understand why he is going about it this way. He does it in a very hostile manner. He does it in a way that's sort of violent, while you can see that Emma has a much more carefree approach to it all. And again, I really liked that back and forth between them, because it really does make for a very interesting debate. You kind of go back and forth, I think, between both of their sides on this one. Like I said, I think that's the part of the film that is very self-reflective, and it's really going to get you to sort of think of choices that you've made in life, or the ways that you've gone about life. And it certainly did for me. Like, I got out of this movie and I thought, I really wish I could have done things a little bit differently. And I think that's something that this film does do very well. But then you have the other souls as well that he is interviewing, and each of them have a specific hope and dream that they really are linked onto, but they also are very much suffering from the teachings of Will, the way he's going about things. They all have different reactions to it, and it's just very interesting to watch the way the film decides to construct all of that. So I think that part of the film is very interesting, but what really I think sticks out about 9 Days is what it really is about. This is not a film that's just about living. This is not a film that's just about living your life to the fullest. It really is a film that is primarily about embracing the smaller moments in life, thinking about the things that maybe you didn't put much thought into, but it's things that you will miss when your time is over. Something as simple as just watching over the night sky. You do it every single night. You go outside, you watch the night sky, all the stars are out. You don't really think much of it, but it's just something that you like to do. And, or you're riding a bike. That's something else that one of the characters in this movie wants to do. They just want to ride a bike, and it's something you do every single day. You go for a bike ride, it makes you feel better. But then you think about, what would happen if that was no longer around? What if that was no longer an option? You would probably miss it. And I think that's something that this film is really trying to get at. The idea that these smaller things in life that don't really seem like they have a lot of meaning, in fact do. And if they were removed from our life would not be as fulfilled. And again, without spoiling much, that's sort of the predicament that Will's in. He has made some choices in his life that he isn't really satisfied with, and you can see throughout the film how he slowly starts to open up about it more. There's also something that has happened recently to him that he's really trying to overcome, and I thought that story was also very interesting. So I think just in general, this film has a lot to say about life that's very fascinating. There's one scene especially with Will, what he ends up saying to a bunch of the souls, this sort of exercise he goes through, and you're just thinking about, like, how does he do this every single time? And he exudes the same emotion, and he always, like, he always tries to evoke fear into them. That's what he wants to do. He wants to invite this sense of fear, and really kind of like prepare them for the world. You really kind of question, how does he go about this every single day? And as you watch the film, you start to understand why this is such an easy thing for him to do. And I think that's something else that was really well done here. But also the world building of this movie, I thought was really well done. I like the idea that the whole thing is constructed almost like a television set of sorts. Many moments Will just be watching souls that he chose on TV, and he's kind of reflecting on, did I make the right choice here? Did this person go down the path that I really wanted them to, or did I make a mistake? And you also feel yourself very much attached to that, I think, because we always are reflecting on decisions that we've made in life, and we think about, could I have done this differently? Did I make the right choice here? What would have happened if I did something different? And that's something that Will is also very much grappling with in this movie. And so I thought the world building was very strong here when it came down to how Will makes the decisions and things like that. It's really something you're just very much captivated by, and I think they do a really good job with that. But it also is not a film that wants to pander to you and beat you over the head constantly with all this exposition. It does present a lot to you, but it does it in a way where it makes sense, because these characters are not that well equipped to this environment. They don't know a lot about what's going on, so you get the sense that, this is the procedure. This is how Will goes about conducting these interviews, and I think that they do a pretty good job with that. But there's one moment especially in this film that really took me off guard. I could not believe they went in such a dark direction right in the beginning of the movie, but it is one of those things where immediately it just hooks you in, and from there you're just locked into this movie. You don't really know what's going to happen next, and I thought it was just such a great choice narratively. So I really like what Edson Oda decided to do in terms of the writing here. There's so much to gush about when it comes to writing, but like I said, I can't really talk about it more without getting into spoilers overall. But the cinematography in this film also is something that really stuck out to me. I love the look and feel of everything. There's so many shots that are going to be ingrained in my memory for forever, especially the ending of this movie is one of the most visually striking endings that I can think of in quite a bit. I mean, it is just, that's probably the thing you're going to remember most, is the way this movie does wrap up in terms of cinematography. I think they do a really good job with that overall. I also really love the score in this movie. It starts off and it's very sort of like tense and emotional, but it gets a lot more sort of euphoric and beautiful towards the end, and I really love the way the score was constructed here. And the editing, I will say, I do think some people might have issues with the runtime. The film is 2 hours. There are points where you can feel it, but for me, I was so locked into every conversation. I was so focused on what was going on. I never really felt the runtime. The film kind of did breeze by for me just because of how invested I was in everything that was going on. And the ending, I will say, without getting into spoilers, the way this film does wrap up is truly one of the most impactful endings I have seen pretty much all year. It's really stuck with me a lot. It honestly ends in a very uplifting manner, which I was not expecting, like I said, but it really does sort of sum up what this film is trying to go for really well, and I really loved what they end up doing when it came to the ending here. I think it is one of the best parts of this film, and I think it's about as satisfying as you can really get. And then in terms of flaws for this movie, I gotta say, I don't really have many at all. I'm kind of coming up a little empty here. I guess my only real flaw with this movie that I will say is that some of the souls, not all, but some of them just feel a little underdeveloped. Tony Hale's character, I did not find myself as attached to here. There's sort of a side storyline going on with him, with how he really feels from what Will is doing, and I did find it a little bit hard to fully latch onto him. I think they could have done more with him as a character, and also David Rysdahl's character as well. I think they could have done more with him, but I still found myself attached to every single character here. I still found myself invested in their stories. I just wanted a little bit more from them. But other than that, 9 Days is truly a life-changing experience that is unlike anything I have seen before. It takes the concept of the afterlife and really puts a whole new meaning on it. It's got a truly standout performance from Winston Duke, which is one of the most emotionally effective that I've seen in quite a bit. It's got a really strong performance from Zazie Beetz as well. A fantastic, I think, directorial debut from Edson, who I really think is going to be something special. It's got writing that truly is so self-reflective, and one of those things you're really going to find yourself, thinking about days, weeks, months after you've seen this film, as well as some breathtaking cinematography and a very powerful score. 9 Days is really the kind of, I think, original and special film that we really do need around this time. It really does suck this film is not really staying as a topic of conversation. I feel like this was a film that was a topic of conversation for a while, but I feel like it's kind of slowed down in terms of momentum, but I truly cannot recommend this film enough. It is absolutely one of the best of the entire year, and I am going to give 9 Days overall an A. Guys, I can't recommend this film enough. I don't know if it's on VOD yet or anything like that, but if you have a chance to see it, please do yourself a favor and check this film out, especially in a theater. I really do think this is a film that is that much more powerful seeing in theaters as soon as you can, and also go into it knowing as little as possible, because trust me when I say it is that much more impactful because of it. That's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.